Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Welcome to the Eugene Cannabis TV show. You got your your host, Dank, and no guests tonight, but I got some great stories to talk about. We had our friend PK here last show, and he called me and reminded me to be on Mercy TV on Friday, and called me actually 5 minutes before I was supposed to be on, and I still missed it. So, how embarrassing. But it's a good reminder, though, so remember that, and put this in your Google Calendar like I finally did. Google at 5 minutes to 7, set your calendar to go off, and a reminder to go off, or an alarm, and you call Mercy TV. That's at 503-588-6444. That's 6 and then 3 fours. Give them support, and give them talk to them. And these guys are real patient advocates, and their show is inspired actually by our show, and so they're good friends. So, but anyway, be sure and check them out. And I still have LV Musica's tin here with me, and we're still looking for somebody that'd like to donate to LV. Donate some cash to LV and pick up this tin as a memento, because this is a real collector item here. This is what LV receives her 300 marijuana cigarettes, one of these a month, from the federal government, and there's only 4 people left in the United States that are still getting that. So, pretty unique. So anyway, we got a couple stories about Oregon, and then first one is kind of close to home in that I know the person that this story is about. The title is "Masked Intruders Hit Legal Marijuana Grow: The First Violent Crime at a Licensed Pot Farm." It's written by Noel Crombie of the Oregonian, dated December 29th, 2016. 4 masked intruders severely beat and robbed a marijuana grower in Jackson County this month in the first reported instance of violent crime at a state-licensed cannabis production operation. The assailants woke James Bowman in the early hours of December 16, broke his nose, and left him with black eyes, county sheriff officials said. They filled a rented U-Haul truck with hundreds of pounds of harvested marijuana and took off. Hours later, 2 of Bowman's workers discovered the 56-year-old still tied up and cold, sheriff's officials said. The robbers had left the door to his house open. Bowman, a longtime marijuana grower in Southern Oregon, was hospitalized for several days. The break-in and theft unfolded in the rural community of Weimar, where Bowman started growing medical marijuana 2 years ago. He had moved there after federal agents and local police raided his large farm in Rouge in 2012, before Oregonians legalized marijuana for recreational use. Bowman, who was on track this year to be the state's largest producer of medical marijuana, wasn't charged with a crime after the raid, which wiped out his crop. This year, Bowman applied for and received a producer license for his business, Blue Sky Gardens, from the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, the agency that oversees recreational cannabis. He is one of more than 350 licensed marijuana growers producing for the recreational market. Bowman holds a Tier 2 license, the larger of the 2 license types issued for outdoor production. Under state rules, he can produce cannabis on up to 40,000 square feet of land. The Liquor Commission inspected Bowman's farm in August. Inspectors concluded the grow site met the state's requirements. Mark Penninger, a commission spokesman, said the agency will conduct an administrative investigation into the security breach once the criminal investigation concludes. Bowman reported the theft to the commission as required. A message left for Bowman with attorney Robert Graham of Grants Pass wasn't returned Thursday. Graham represents the property owner who leased the land to Bowman. Experienced marijuana growers in southern Oregon, the epicenter of outdoor production, say break-ins, thefts, and robberies aren't a new threat. What sets Bowman's case apart is the rapid response of law enforcement, they said. Growers have been calling law enforcement for years and gotten no response, said grower Brent Kenyon. It's absolutely awesome that we are seeing a response to the robbery at Bowman's property. Jackson County Detective Jason Penn said the agency is taking the case seriously and vigorously investigating it. He said the marijuana is stolen from a large cargo container which had been secured with a padlock. The locks are easily chipped off, Penn said. The assailants damaged the state-required security system. Authorities are still trying to assess the surveillance footage remaining in the system, he said. The thieves struck as the crop was at its most valuable. Bowman's marijuana had been harvested and cured and is ready for market. It's all buttoned up nicely in big totes and it's ready to go, Penn said. It's like coming to someone's house on Christmas Eve and taking all their goodies. The price of marijuana fluctuates depending on the time of year and whether it was grown indoors or outdoors. Premium outdoor marijuana is worth $1,600 to $2,100 per pound on the wholesale market, said Aviv Hadar, whose Ben company Overgrown processes and sells recreational cannabis. It's worth double that on the retail market, he said. The stolen cannabis is headed for the black market, but it's hard to say how and where the thieves will unload it, Hader said. He speculated that it may be processed into popular cannabis oils. It could end up in California or across the country where Oregon cannabis fetches top dollar. Hadar said he has round-the-clock security staff to deter thieves from entering his property. Security, he said, is a precaution for many growers. It keeps us up at night, he said. Yeah, Jane Bowman was my friend's grower a couple of years ago, and I was able to try some of his product, and I'm telling you, he has some incredible medicine. So anyway, it's sorry to hear about his troubles, but anyway, at least he is recovering. So I guess it could have been a lot worse. Excuse me. And then we have another one. This is out of Oregon too. Change is inevitable. Oregon medical marijuana patients may lose out to rec sales. This is written by Scott Gasik. It was on the medicaljane.com website. It's December 31st, 2016. Attention all current and prospective Oregon medical marijuana patients. Ready or not, how you obtain medical cannabis products in your state is about to change. For the past 15 months, recreational and medical marijuana sales have occurred side by side at many dispensaries. But starting January 1st, 2017, retail shops have to decide between servicing medical patients or recreational users. While this is great news for adults who wish to purchase marijuana for recreational use, this could have a negative effect on some patients as many medical marijuana dispensaries make the switch to a potentially more lucrative recreational marijuana market. The reason marijuana dispensaries are now being forced to choose between serving medical or recreational users is primarily because two different regulatory bodies oversee cannabis in Oregon. The Oregon Health Authority, OHA, oversees the Oregon Medical Marijuana Program, while the Oregon Liquor Control Commission is responsible for licensing recreational marijuana retailers. Dispensaries can hold a license issued by either the OHA as a medical marijuana dispensary or the OLCC as a recreational pot shop, but not both, at least in the same storefront. Larger operations that have several locations throughout the state will be able to designate certain locations to medical as opposed to recreational, but most small family-owned businesses with only one location will take the biggest hit under the new rules. Shortly after voters approved Measure 91 in 2014, lawmakers passed legislation allowing early start sales of marijuana to adults at the state's medical marijuana dispensaries. This was done primarily to curb black market sales. while allowing cannabis consumers to get used to the idea of purchasing marijuana legally. But that practice came with an expiration. Originally, early start sales were expected to end mid-2016 as recreational shops began opening doors. But the legislature extended the sunset clause until the end of 2016. The sale of recreational marijuana products at Oregon Health Authority medical marijuana dispensaries ends on December 31st, 2016, a spokesperson for the OLCC said via email. The end of the early start sales means that beginning January 1st, only Oregon medical marijuana patient program cardholders are legally allowed to purchase marijuana products under OHA registered dispensaries. Consumers can continue to purchase recreational marijuana products from Oregon Liquor Control Commission licensed retailers, and OMMP cardholders may purchase medical grade marijuana products from authorized licensed OLCC retailers. This is likely to cause confusion for some and supply issues for others, both for medical cannabis patients and recreational marijuana consumers. Some localities have banned rec shops from opening, meaning only medical marijuana patients will have access in those communities. In other areas, a proliferation of recreational retailers could cause a shortage of medical marijuana dispensaries, forcing patients to drive. Hopefully, both markets will be able to coexist and thrive, especially once consumer shopping habits stabilize, but only time will tell. So that's some more of the fallout, the legalization, and where we're headed. And of course, the Oregon legislature is getting ready to go into session. So things are still all up in the air again, and the medical marijuana program is not looking good because of the state's mishandling of it and charging a grower's fee, which amounts to a junk fee. There's no reason for it other than they want to make more money. The state wants to make more money. The idea of the program was it was supposed to pay for itself, but the state took that way and above and beyond that and took off and run with it. And now the state has a nice cash cow, and they're making big money off the program, off the backs of sick medical marijuana patients, to be honest. That's the way it is. And it isn't right, but that's the way it is. So anyway, I read this last show, except now the number's bigger. There are 39 bills. Last week I said there were 19. Well, now there's 39 bills introduced so far, and there's so we don't know if any more are coming after that or not, but there's 39 of them right now. And the one we wanted to talk about and bring up real quick that we do know something about is HB 2198. CompassionateOregon.org is the organization that's putting forward a bill establishing a medical use of cannabis board. And the board will administer OMMP and take that away from the OHA. It also increases the possession limit for patients to 6 pounds per plant and removes reporting from 12 planters, regardless of where it is being grown. It moves bigger medical marijuana growers to the Department of Ag and register them just like a hemp grower. We must do everything we can to keep OMMP growers away from the OLCC and one of the largest law enforcement agencies in the state. So that's where we're at with that. So there's a lot more bills coming up, some good, a lot of bad. The state continues, they're clueless and biased with marijuana, and the track record is not good. So stay tuned, and we'll be telling you more about it and letting you know of get-togethers and rallies, which we can all participate in. So I'm going to be back for the second half.
Are you tired of following all the rules? Ready to let loose? Have a little fun? Sounds like you need to. Get high. And with NarcoMex Incorporated, your direct-to-consumer drug trafficking solution, you can. NarcoMex values your business. That's why we're your #1 supplier of drugs, and you're our #1 consumer. These billions can't be wrong. We work hard for your business and have killed not 1, not 2, but 3 Mexican police and 2 journalists just to keep you high with that very joint. Why, our commitment to keeping you supplied has killed over 17,000 people right next door. Traffickers, soldiers, journalists, prosecutors, you name it. We're that passionate about your business. We've even begun to destroy some of your favorite tropical beach destinations. Because if you smoke enough at home, You don't even need a beach. But don't legalize it or grow it at home. Let us do the work for you. Sure, consumers boycotted evil companies, but there's no need to boycott NarcoMex Incorporated, your direct-to-consumer drug trafficking solution, also offering heroin, meth, and cocaine. NarcoMex Incorporated. Live a little, and forget others won't.
Welcome to the second half of show episode 634. You got Dank here, and I just went through several stories, actually in Oregon, about Oregon and the cannabis, the whole cannabis world, I guess you might say. Next stories coming up are from different stories out of state, but still pertaining to the subject, so it's what we're talking about here. This one is from therooster.com, written by Riley Capps, dated January 13th, 2017, titled, "Drug Testing Policies Might Get a Much-Needed Upgrade Soon." Even though recreational cannabis has been legal for adults to consume since 2012 in Colorado, there isn't a single company known to have changed its policies on having it in your system. So NORML, a marijuana advocacy group, is developing a citizen-led lobbying effort to convince employers that they're missing out on good talent by testing for a substance that's less harmful than alcohol. You've got way more to worry about with someone coming in all hungover and half awake than you do with someone on trace metabolites of marijuana, said Denver NORML Executive Director Jordan Person. Person unveiled the new anti-drug test campaign recently in Denver's Reno neighborhood, in a vaulted warehouse that was recently converted into a high-class, cannabis-friendly meeting space and co-work area called Cultivated Synergy. There, the air is thick with a strong whiff of dabs and new money. The schmancy track lighting overhead and heavily laminated business cards being handed around are a stark reminder of that. In Denver, smoking marijuana is more likely to land you a job than it is to lose you one. Still, the people there tell stories of horror back when they lived in Barmer States, when drug tests dragged down their careers. For bud tender Keys Van Burgick, whose body was a tangled mess after he hit the pavement at 50 miles an hour on his longboard, marijuana was the best thing to manage the pain, except for opioids. I can't even, he said, and those things would kill you. He was a lifeguard at a camp for special kids' needs, but his use made him have to quit. When he told the kids, a special needs girl who he used to tell stories to broke into tears. Yes, just as some businesses look down on pot smokers, intelligent cabinists look down on drug testing businesses as unsophisticated or uneducated, said brand consultant Tycho Skinner, who has an MBA from Cornell. I discount their business acumen, he says. Drug testing businesses are missing out on top-notch talent, Person adds. Really intelligent people who might be the best graphic designers or coders on the planet, but because they have daily nausea, they use marijuana so they don't go for the job, she says. NORML's campaign also includes coordination from NORML chapters in Oregon, Washington, and California. Colorado's NORML will be lobbying on Colorado's Capitol Hill on March 7th. There, they'll point out how silly it is to test for marijuana, but not other, more life-wrecking drugs. The current situation tells employers, take all the drugs you want, just don't smoke any weed, says Person. Get as drunk as you want, but don't do weed. Do a bunch of cocaine and then come to work, and you'll be fine. It's out of your system quick, but don't do any weed. It's ridiculous, Person adds. In time, it has to change. People are excited that the conversation is being had again. So I always like to say the only people that benefit from drug testing are the people that manufacture the drug tests. And this was exciting out in New York. This was dated December 10th, 2016. It was on weednews.co, and this is written by Johnny Green. Johnny Green is a cannabis activist from Oregon. Johnny has a bachelor's degree in public policy and believes that the message should always be more important than the messenger. Side note, Johnny Green never been to the Emerald Empire Hemp Fest, though. You know, he's supposed to be a real political guy and a real cannabis activist, and he's in the state, but he's never been to the Emerald Empire Hemp Fest, so kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? But anyway, the story goes on. He's saying that medical marijuana is for suffering patients. That seems obvious, but there are a lot of policies in America that prevent suffering patients from using medical marijuana. Hospitals are centers for suffering people. It's where people go to be treated and hopefully healed. Marijuana is a proven medicine, so one would think that people would be able to use marijuana in hospitals in certain forms. I don't think that anyone would rationally think that anyone would smoke anything, marijuana included, in a hospital. But administering cannabis oil or marijuana edibles to a patient in need doesn't seem like a big deal. But most hospitals in legal states don't allow cannabis on the premises for various reasons, with federal prohibition being the most often cited reason. New York hospitals were recently given the directive that they will be allowed to permit medical marijuana consumption on the premises. Per Syracuse.com, they wrote, the state wants to let patients use medical marijuana in hospitals. Hospitals will be allowed to create policies allowing patients to use the drug or have caregivers administer it to them under a regulation proposed by the state health department. The regulation is expected to go into effect in February. The proposal is part of an effort by the state to expand New York's medical marijuana program. New York is one of the most strict medical marijuana programs in the country, so this policy directive is pretty surprising, but a welcome surprise for sure. New York does not permit the sales of smokable medical marijuana, so I'd imagine most hospitals will not have a hard time coming up with and enforcing cannabis policies. I love to see a standard set across the country that permits cannabis use by patients. I have had to watch more than a few of my friends and family sneak cannabis use because it helped them while they were in the hospital. It put them at risk while they were already suffering. There has to be a better way. So anyway, that's good news. So let's hope that that's a trend that will be spreading. And then this one, again, see, this is from krctv.com, dated December 15th, 2016, written by Noel Medina. Law enforcement preparing to deal with a spike in marijuana DUIs. Around 3 a.m. on Wednesday, December 14th, the Reading Police Department arrested a juvenile for driving under the influence of marijuana. The unidentified juvenile drove a stolen truck onto the train tracks at Brewster Way in Reading, hitting the crossing mechanism and causing it to break. We're lucky he just got high, centered on the tracks, right? Officer Gary Meadows of the Reading Police Department said. What if he takes out a family or even one person, he added. Officer Meadows said he had seen an increase in drivers under the influence of drugs and alcohol and, under the influence of drugs and drug and alcohol combinations. He believes impairment is impairment, no matter the substance. My fear is that people are going to mistake current legislation for an answer to them that it is okay to smoke their marijuana and drive their car, and that is not the case. It's not legal and it's not safe, and so absolutely it concerns me, he said. Since passing the California State Proposal 64, legalized marijuana in November, local law enforcement said they expect to see an increase in the number of drivers driving under the influence of marijuana. Officer Meadows said there is currently no evaluation for a presumed level of intoxication from marijuana in California. Sergeant Matt Larson, Reading CHP, said he's hopeful the state will come up with a baseline minimum soon for testing high drivers. Tax dollars collected from Proposition 64 will go towards funding drug research and enforcement to figure out how high is too high to operate a vehicle. Until a minimum is determined, officers will continue testing high drivers with the same field sobriety test they use to test drunk drivers. They'll look at the psychological symptoms. Obviously, they're going to take a look at the subject's eyes, their movement, their gait, that sort of thing. They'll run them through a series of tests and determine if they are okay to drive or too impaired to drive. Sergeant Larson said close tailgating is a sign of driving under the influence of marijuana because high drivers have little depth perception. Officer Meadows adds, weaving in between lanes and slow braking to the list of high driving signs. If you notice a driver exhibiting these signs, you're encouraged to call the police immediately. Boy, I'd be on the phone quite a while, or quite a bit there. But that's an interesting thing that I read, I guess, before, but I didn't really didn't register to me. So this is something to think about. Tailgating is a sign of driving under the influence of marijuana because high drivers have little depth perception. I never heard that before, but that's interesting. And then also weaving in between lanes and slow braking to the list of high driving signs. Slow braking. Interesting. So, I don't know. It kind of reminds me of the green tongue. And by the way, if anybody's ever heard of that, be sure and please let me know and tell me as much as they know about it. But I've had a couple of people that told me that they were pulled over and the cops asked them to told them to stick their tongue out and then told them they had a green tongue and therefore they were under the influence of marijuana. And I couldn't, the first time I was amazed, but couldn't find out it does happen occasionally. And so if anybody's ever come across that, let me know because I would definitely like to talk about it and do that story. So, but anyway, be careful out there because the thing is to keep your smell down and be sure and put it your herb. Be sure and still keep it in your baking bags. Made by Reynolds and a few other companies. They're relatively inexpensive, but you put it inside one of those special baking bags that you put a roast in for baking in the oven. Something about that plastic, I don't know what it is, but you put your medicine in that and give it a couple of twists and put it away and you won't smell it. I'm not saying I'll defeat a dog, I don't know, but I can tell you what, a human won't smell it. So if you don't know about that yet, be sure and practice that because be safe because cops are still looking for DOIs even though pot's legal, in fact maybe more so. So anyway, come on to the next show. We need some more guests and love to have people come in and say hi to us. So we'll see you then. Thanks a lot.